After creating the view for our layers, we came from every layer and we created the elements that we needed for that layer. For example, we came up with the furniture plan, the layout plan, and we prepared the furniture plan, right? After we have done this, now we have to take the views that we created and do the sheet funding. So before that, I want to talk to you about a topic, and that is the parting of project documents. What does this mean? Look, before we do the sheet funding, we have to do this step. Of course, I can say that for a series of documents, we have to do this before the sheet funding. And what does the parting of the project document mean? Look, many times what happens in projects is that they tell us the size of the sheet that they think it's suitable. For example, they say that for this project, the document should be in an A1 sheet or in an A0 sheet. Usually A0 or A1, A0 is used a little less. Usually the size of the sheet that we need in large project is A1 and A0 because when it's printed, it becomes very large and a little difficult to control. Many do not use this size. This size of sheet is informed to us by the employee who actually sends us the sheet of his opinion, which we actually show on the same sheet. On the other hand, we actually have a series of standard scales for phase 2. What does this mean? For example, the plans for the size of a project in phase 2, their scales should not be less than 1 to 50. For example, it should not be less than 1 to 100. It cannot be a 1 to 200 because we cannot show anything in a 1 to 200 scale. In phase 2 plans, we show a lot of information. We show the code of the project. We show the name of the space. We measure the size. We tag the doors. We show a lot of information. For example, the number of ducts, or a series of text to introduce the different parts of the project, and all this information in a plan with scales. For example, 1 to 200, 1 to 100. It's not very logical. We cannot put anything in that scale, in that plan. So there is a standard which is usually 1 to 50, which is a suitable scale for phase 2 plan. For example, the display, because there is so much information compared to the plan, it cannot be displayed. For example, a scale of 1 to 100 is okay for it. It is not a problem for you to show your phase 2 plans with a scale 1 to 100. It's also dependent on the project, but it's usually like this. Sometimes it happens that, for example, I want to put the first layer of this project in a sheet, and it's a large plan, and I want to close the sheet. The plans that I want to work with, a scale that is actually designed for the phase 2, at least in phase 2, it will be announced to you that your plans should work with that scale. That plan with that scale cannot be placed in a sheet that a firm has announced its size. For example, the plan of the first layer of this project, which a scale of 1 to 50, cannot be placed in a sheet, for example, A1 or A3. Well, that sheet size is now announced to you. The same thing happens in this project. We were actually supposed to have a scale of 1 to 50, but since our project was very large, the plans of this project with a scale of 1 to 50 in the sheet size was announced could not be replaced. Usually in these situations, what we should do is that you part the plans. Now it's not just about the plan. It can be about the sheet. It can be about the cut. You can part a lot of things in a project. I'm not just talking about the plan. For example, in this project, we parted large scale plans. We parted the sheets. We parted the cuts. In fact, in a project that is very large in scale, the probability that you will be forced to part the sheets and cuts is very high because, well, a project that has many layers has a high level of height, which with a scale of 1 to 100 may not fit in your sheet. It may not fit in a horizontal sheet. Now, Sometimes they tell us not to put a square sheet. That is 90% of the time we put it in a square sheet. Sometimes they also say no, actually keep it our way, but it's parted. So the principle usually here is that you should do the parting at the time when the square you want to put the sheet in does not fit your horizontal sheet. Now, before you actually do the parting and when you go to the layout, you must definitely be in touch with the designers, with the design team, and coordination with the issues with them. First, what scale is actually supposed to be used for that square? And second, for example, with that scale, it becomes 5 parts, okay? Maybe sometimes the number of parts is too much. Come and change the scale. That is, you have to be very coordinated in these matters, and you can't do it on your own. For example, you are doing a project and you see this plan does not fit. Well, okay, I'll change the scale so that it fits. No, we are not going to do that. Or for example, I do the parting for myself and I will send it to him. It is very good to do the parting discussion. For example, in general projects, when the issue occurs, we usually come with one of the plans. In fact, the biggest plan that we have in this project, we say that this plan, if it fits with the scale that you give it in sheet, it must be, for example, 4 parts. It must be, for example, 3 parts. It is very important how exactly the parting takes place. That is, you can give your suggestion to the employees, but at the end, you must definitely know what they think, because sometimes it is very important for them where that plan comes from, where is the parting project, right? Well, now let's go do this project together. Look, in this project, the sheet that they sent us, and now the sheet was an A0, and the scale of the plans was supposed to be a 1 to 50. That is, the scale of the plans was supposed to be in this sheet with a scale of 1 to 50. The rest of the plans, like the furniture and flooring, were supposed to be in this sheet with the same scale of 1 to 100. And the plans of the countertop and the plans of this size were supposed to be in this sheet with a scale of 1 to 50. The reason why you see that the size of the plans and the scale of the countertop different from those two plans is because those two plans we do not show much information in. For example, in the furniture plan, you do not need to show so much detail that you need a scale of 1 to 50. But in the countertop plan, why? Because you see the elements of the countertop, you want to make it a larger size, you want to make a tag, you show a lot of information in a large size plan. But in a flooring plan, you may not need to show that much information. In furniture plan, you do not need to show that much information. That is why their scales are different from each other. What happens in this project was that we could not put a whole floor with a scale of 1 to 50 in a sheet. It would not fit. What would we do? So we made a partition. Now here I want to talk to you about how we make a partition for our project. Here, as in the previous session we talked about it, how we made a partition for our views. First we duplicate. So we made a grid for each floor. Then we made a partition for our views so that we can easily access them. If you remember, we learned 2 ways to make the partition for a project. Here I have a series of dimension plans, and their scale is 1 to 100. This is a plan that fits in this sheet. I want to talk to you about the floor of the second floor. We make a partition for one floor. We learn this dimension together. The rest of the floors are the same. We work on one floor in the same way. This is the floor plan of the second floor. The sheet that was given to us was supposed to work on that sheet. And in this sheet, let me bring this sheet here for you. Here it is. Here in this sheet that was given to us, we were supposed to work on this sheet. Usually in a project like this, they will send you the block of that sheet in AutoCAD. You load it and you have to load it into Revit and load it into the project. When we were making the sheet, we were working on it together, but this is how it works. We didn't design this sheet. They gave it to us in AutoCAD. We loaded it into Revit and then we loaded it into the project. How should I know that this plan is not gonna fit in this sheet? Well, guys, you have to keep in mind you always have to test it beforehand. Before you test it, when you want to announce to your employee that you will deliver this list of plans at the end of the project, you have to check these documents first. Usually we create an Excel project and send it to our employee so that we can deliver these documents to them. For example, these are the larger plans, these are small plans, and these are like the other plans. So you have to say, for example, the furniture are parted or not, or what are the scales. You have to tell them all of that and so on. After you have approved the documents, you can easily make your own sheet. You always have to get the documents for the list of documents that you're going to deliver. Now, both the scales and the number of parts, you definitely have to compare them. The first thing that you should do is that you bring the sheet that you're going to work on into the project, and when the view that you want is in this sheet, you directly put it on this sheet, right? It can be like this. Well, as you can see here, this plan does not fit my sheet. So as you can see, it's not gonna fit horizontally in my sheet. It's a little out of place. Here you either have to rotate the plan or you have to make a partition and see what the employer thinks. We are now one step behind that topic. We will talk about it, how to rotate it, this view sheet later. Right now I have to come and calculate the scale that this plan was supposed to have. Let me check to see if the scale is correct. The scale was supposed to be in our plan 1 to 50, but now the scale of this plan is a 1 to 100, so I have to change the scale and put the scale on 1 to 50. Actually, on the scale that it should be, so I can decide how many parts I have to do in this sheet. So let's see, right now, even if you rotate this view in the sheet, it doesn't fit my sheet. The scale was supposed to be a 1 to 100, but now the scale is a 1 to 50. So it doesn't fit my sheet. Even if you rotate this view in this sheet, here you have partition your plan. But by the time you decide to partition your plan, rotating it in this sheet, it's usually like meaningless. Because when you rotate the view in the sheet, it becomes a mess. Maybe you can do it in one of the overall plans and the scale is smaller. But when you decide to partition your plan, why do you have to do it in a 90 degree? You have to do it the way you see it. Well, how do I partition my plan? I always do this. I come here and show this in this sheet. Then I see how much this plan fits this sheet. So you have to be careful not to fill your sheet too much. For example, I want to test a series. I bring this down because I want to have at least some parts. I bring this down as much as I can and I bring it closer to this line. In this part, as you can see, is a full. I fill this part, then I come here and say a part of this is part of this. Now, a part of this does not fit. You have to be very careful not to do this because we always have a series of information that is outside of that. For example, this axis is always outside of the project. The axis has dimension. The section line is always outside of the project. Do you see this? we have a series of information that is outside of the plan. We have to keep in mind that, more importantly, doesn't this sheet have a title? For example, I see this thing in this sheet and I see what it is. For example, the dimension plan of the first part of the A6. So I have to put a title. And for a series of information that is outside of the plan, I have to pay attention. So put both of them in a blank space. By the way, I don't test the partitioning like this usually. I bring this up and say, for example, this is the title and this is the blank space for access. I even bring this up a little bit. I don't usually say, okay, so this part of this wall is this part of the sheet. No, I bring this down a little bit, right? So you have to pay attention to this partitioning. There's also a little trick. For example, I bring this down a little bit. I bring it down so that the partitioning I want to do doesn't ruin my box of sensors. Or for example, I don't come to the partition from the middle of this wall. I partition in such a way that this wall is completely empty in the plans, so that when the employee or anyone else sees this plan, it should be understandable. That wall should not be a piece of metal. You have to pay attention to these points as well. Well, I come here and I say, pay attention here to this thing. In fact, this section that I put this sheet, in my opinion, this plan should have 3 parts in the sheet. For example, 1 part up here, 1 part from here to here, and 1 part at the end. So when I come here and drag the view, I put it in the sheet. In fact, I want to have a view to see how to plan with a scale of 1 to 50 is going to be displayed in this sheet. So that I know, for example, how many parts are there, or if I can see later, for example, a few issues, I will change it. It doesn't matter. But if I have a complete view that I need to do a few parts, then I go to make partition and come back to test it. There is no problem. So far, we have put the view in a sheet with a scale that was actually supposed to have this plan. Our sheet is the same size as it should be, and we made a complete display. And we almost realized that, for example, this layer should have few parts. Another thing to be aware of, where you want to announce to your employees that your plan are about a few parts. We usually consider the largest plan. Let's see how many parts it will be. The rest are either the same size or less than that. Now, for example, the layer I brought here is probably larger than the layers above it. This is the largest part, for example. One of the layers above it may have 2 different parts. For example, we had a project in Baku that was without partitioning from layer ground floor to 6th floor. That is, the plan itself was combined with the scale from the 6th floor to the 20th floor. It was partitioned from layer to layer. It was partitioned again. That is, it did not have a partition. It is possible that one of your plans will be divided, but your plan will not be divided. There is no problem here. For example, all plans should have 3 parts. So far, we have learned this topic together. In the next session, we will go to partition and discuss how to divide plans into 3 parts.